Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and greetings to Dr. Noila. My name is Nur Atira and we are from Group 2. In this video, we will be presenting two questions that have been assigned to us, which are the impacts of Tawhid on man's thoughts and actions, and also why does Islam regard secular humanism and postmodernism as a moral threat to the spiritual and moral well-being of man. First thing first, Tawhid can be defined as acknowledging Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala as the sole Almighty God by worshipping and believing in His singularity, essence, attributes, and actions. He is the only God and incomparable with others. So one of the impacts of Tawhid is that it affects man's economic life. At-Tawhid suggests that the Almighty owns all resources created for human consumption. So man, as Earth's trustee, has been charged with ensuring that all resources are being used and distributed efficiently and fairly for society. So humans will not be greedy as they understand and believes that every resources in this world is owned by Allah and not them, and this will impact their thoughts by doing decision making on how to fully utilize it for the welfare and the benefit of people. Next, the impacts of Tawhid can be seen in man honesty. The permissibility of things which are allowed by the Quran and Sunnah should be beneficial for humanity. No act of fraud are allowed. For example, selling defective commodities without informing the buyer about defects contained in it is prohibited. Furthermore, spending of wealth is restricted to halal things and cannot be spent on anything that is forbidden by Islam. Muslims must invest capital in an enterprise that is halal, although it might bring less profit as compared to what accrues on haram enterprise. Lastly, in business transactions, At-Tawhid makes its believers to conduct good actions while doing trade between sellers and buyers. It allows business transactions while prohibits any form of usury. Usury in Islam is injustice, which has been taken from the one by force without sharing profit and loss. This is irreligious, inhuman, and immoral, which makes rich as richer and poor as poorer. By practicing Tawhid in economy, it will avoid this kind of act from happening, as Islam emphasizes the act of being honest in business transactions.
Next, what is the impact of Tawhid on man's personality and spirituality? So, before we go into a deeper discussion, what is the meaning of personality and spirituality? So, personality is a distinctive manner of thinking, feeling, and behaving. Personality includes moods, attitudes, and opinions, and it is most evident in interactions with other people. It encompasses both the natural and acquired behavioral qualities that identify one person from another and can be noticed in people's interactions with their surroundings and social groups. The first impacts on man's personality and spirituality is first, modesty and pride. So At-Tawhid means that a believer must have faith in Allah as the supreme authority over life, death, and sustenance, as well as the possessor of all powers. Nothing can either benefit or hinder a person's life. This makes a person self-sufficient and respectable. The believer would not dishonor himself by bowing in adoration to any creature or becoming suppliant to anyone. The second one is the humbleness and humility. Tawhid makes a believer humble and reliant to Allah. His Lord is aware of all that occurs in this world, big or tiny, good or evil, gain or loss, increase or decline, life or death, wealth or poverty, and health or sickness. Removing arrogant, egoistic, and self-conceited perceptions in order to recognize his given merits and achievements, which are gifts from the Almighty rather than his own word. Third one is the morality, tolerance, and open-mindedness. At-Tawhid safeguards a believer's morality and cultivates open-mindedness, tolerance, and compassion. This also encourages him to be moral in order to build an ideal society. And then the ultimate peace and contentment. So a believer achieves serenity of mind and body, which cleanses the mind of jealousy, envy, greed, resentment, spite, and voracity, keeping him from the desire to use base and unfair ways to achieve success in this world. His Lord controls his rank, honor, power, fortune, property, success, and failure. Man's responsibility is to struggle in order to achieve his goal and fulfill his Lord's trust. And then the last one is total submission to Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala's command. So according to At-Tawhid, a believer must surrender his bodily and spiritual parts to his Lord's will as manifested and measured by him. It is the most significant impact of La ilaha illallah on the personality and spirituality of a believer. Sin is known to him whether it is concealed or open, in a lonely corner or in the darkness of night. Thoughts and intentions, whether good or negative, cannot escape his scrutiny.
Next, I will explain about the impacts of Tawheed on one's social life. To be clear, we will start by what is the meaning of socials in one's life. As a human being, we need to have a social interaction with others as we live in a society. Thus, we must create a harmonious society with positive interpersonal interaction with others to lead to a better life. Besides, society from the Islamic perspective can be seen when Allah mentioned in the Quran, "Let there be of you an ummah which calls humanity to righteousness, which enjoys the good and forbids the evil. Only such an ummah is felicitous. It is an association of humans for the purpose of actualizing the will of God." So, we need to build a society and have a social interaction with others that follow the Islamic teachings and the Sharia rules. Thus, the impacts of Tawheed in one's thought is that it can change their social character and development as Muslims believe in the oneness of Allah, which is Tawheed. Humans are protected from committing injustice and harmful deeds by having Tawheed in their life, which also provide them with guidance. As a result, passion, striving, self-assurance and other traits will be instilled in them. It will lead to the creation of strong social relationships in society because of their positive attitudes. Moreover, the impacts of the Tawheed on one's thoughts also will realize the Muslim responsibility as a Khalifah and a trustee of Allah to play a key part in completing Allah's universal goal. For example, to achieve peace among the brotherhoods, justice and the unity of the Ummah as a whole. While the impacts of Tawheed in one's action is that he will become more responsible toward his creator, other fellow men, society, state, ummah, as well as towards the natural environment. For example, one will struggle to improve relationship with his creator by worshipping him alone in accordance with the divine guidance which are the Al-Quran and the Sunnah. As Muslims have the Tawheed in their life, they will worship Allah alone. Thus, the feeling of fear towards Allah will influence them to do good and become more responsible towards other fellow men as well as towards the other creations of Allah Subhanahu Wa Taala. As for the responsibilities to man, society and the state, every individual can play a vital role in safeguarding people's life and dignity. The major goals are to develop regular prayer, frequent charity and to encourage what is right and prohibit what is evil in the benefit of humanity. Industrial society should be devoid of all sorts of social crime and corruption. Besides, one will work for moral and spiritual perfection as the impacts of Tawheed in their actions. At-Tawheed encourage a believer to correct his belief as well as his behavior for the good of the community in order to gain Allah Subhanahu's pleasure. This also requires him to work toward the society's spiritual and moral purity. One assists another in piety, not in faults and evils. This also can encourage men to establish social justice in the society. Everyone in the community should have the same rights and position. There will be no social or racial prejudice or other forms of discrimination for any individual or family if social justice is established. To conclude for the first question, it is necessary to stress that At-Tawheed is the central theme of Islam, which incorporates the whole Islamic order. Thoughts and action in one's life may depend on one's Tawheed. Thus, we can see that one's Tawheed may affect the overall aspect in life as the explanation before, including man's economy and social life, man's personality, spirituality and more.
Jumping to the next question, which is why does Islam regard secular humanism and postmodernism as a moral trait to the spiritual and a moral well-being of a man? So, what is secular humanism? So, secular humanism is a non-religious worldview rooted in science, philosophical naturalism, and humanist ethics. Instead of relying on faith, doctrine, and mysticism, secular humanists use compassion, critical thinking, and human experience to find solutions to human problems. Secular humanists promotes values including Ihsan, goodwill, the free of exchange of ideas, and tolerance. We can build a better world for ourselves, and integrity, benevolence, fairness, and responsibility, and believe that with read for future generations. So further, secular humanism maintains that through a process of value inquiry informed by scientific and reflective thought, men and women can reach rough agreement concerning values, crafting ethical systems and that deliver optimal results for human beings in a broad spectrum of circumstances. On the other hand, postmodernism is an intellectual stance or mode of discourse defined by an attitude of skepticism toward what it considers as the grand narratives of modernism, an opposition to epistemic certainty and the stability of meaning, and adopt full perspective towards the usefulness of ideology in changing social systems. So what is the characteristic of postmodernism? First, postmodernism against all concepts such as rationalism, capitalism, positivism, and liberalism. It also all kinds of pluralism are preferred instead of universal unity. And then the last one, that understanding of national and universal culture is rejected by this ideology. Modernism reflects a wide range of critical perspectives on postmodernity, postmodern philosophy, postmodern art, and postmodern architecture. So postmodernism in the arts may have its own meanings. It is often described by an attitude of skepticism, irony, or rejection toward what is viewed as the grand narratives and the ideology associated with modernism, especially those linked with Enlightenment reason.
Postmodernism promotes the Western project by challenging all beliefs of reality and truth. The West has come to dominate other cultural systems by appropriating forms and cultural ideas from other cultures and separating them from their histories and belief systems. Because of the expansion of Western cultural forms as a result of globalization, it poses a societal threat to a section of Muslim societies, particularly the youth. The desire of material wealth, individualism, consumerism, and sexual freedom, rather than the philosophical deconstruction of faith principles, threatens to draw sections of Muslim youth and educated elite away from the Muslim religion. With the thoughts of postmodernism, it will give a threat to Muslims as they implement freedom without restrictions. Hence, postmodernism ideas appear to have been conducive to and strongly associated with the feminist movement, racial equality, gay rights, and even the peace movement, as well as various hybrids of this. For secular humanism, it will cause a threat to the Islam, as the new generation has been exposed to all kinds of modern Western fashions and lifestyle. To them, the religious values and teachings embedded in their scriptures have simply become irrelevant. Programs shown on TV are highly detrimental to the development of a person's good character, as they contain a lot of unethical entertainment, violence, and sex scenes. This will also affect the minds of youngsters, as they will use it to think of unnecessary things which are unhealthy. Since secular humanism minimizes the importance of religion and excludes God's guidance almost completely in the daily affairs of man's life, people are free to engage in wrongdoings, and thus immoral acts keep increasing from day to day. Among the issues that have risen is LGBT. Today, due to massive support from the political and entertainment world, to mention something that would sound unsupportive to these groups would be a big no, because one would accuse of doing a hate crime. While this lifestyle may not hurt or harm anyone, especially those living in a country that is open, harmonious, and respectful of each other's right and expression, still, it is something that is very unacceptable to the nature of many religions and beliefs, especially in Islam itself. Secular humanism do not believe in afterlife, thus they are living in the world as if they are not going to receive punishment for their immoral behavior and crimes that they have done in the world.
Why does Islam regard secular humanism as a moral threat toward Muslims? The concept of secular humanism may encourage Muslims to believe in their own ability to live their life and solve problems with less or no reliance on the supernatural worlds. As humanism claims that man can shape his destiny without the help of God or religion, particularly because this principle believes that belief in God and religion restricts man, while disbelief in it allows for the greater achievements. And because of this, the idea of secular humanism is contradictory with the Islamic teachings. As in Islam, we are taught to have tawakkul towards Allah in whatever we do after we are done in doing something. Thus, if the idea of secular humanism planted in the Muslim stock, it may affect their spiritual and moral well-being, as they may reduce their practice and doing ibadah towards Allah, as well as affect their akidah as a Muslim. For example, to pray to Allah to ease their daily life. Next, the factor in why Islam regards postmodernism as a moral threat is due to the fact that postmodernism is likely associated with relativism, in which relativism implies a subjectivity of moral right and wrong. In other words, the right or wrong of certain things changes by the transition of time, place, individual, and society. However, in Islam, worldly activities are for the hereafter sakes. Man must decide what is morally right and immoral from the Islamic teaching. which are based on the Quran and the Sunnah. Thus, postmodernism influenced the belief of Muslims by teaching them about something that was wrong may be right according to a certain place. Without the proper guidance, Muslims may deviate in following the teachings of this ideology as they thought it is the right thing to do, although it is wrong from the Islamic perspective. From this, we can clearly see the incompatibility between postmodernist ethical thought and Islamic spiritual ethics, and the reason why this ideology may become a moral threat towards man. To conclude, we as a Muslim, we need to be cautious in engaging with the new teachings as it may be contradictory with the Islamic teachings. We may take the pros of the ideologies but not be against the Islamic teachings. For example, we may take the value of tolerance from the teachings of secular humanism but not go to the deeper aspect in which to solely depend on ourselves without the guidance of Allah Subhanahu Wa Taala. I think that's all from our group. Thank you.